Look, I really love movies, but God, it's easy to piss me off. In the last couple of weeks, I've watched some excellent films, from the beautiful animations of K-pop Demon Hunters to the unnerving horror of the Saw franchise. But out of all of the films, two truly amazing ones stood out that just barely missed the mark of being 10 out of 10s. These two movies, as you may have seen, are the brand new Frankenstein released less than a week ago, and the not-so-recent Weapons. Both of them are incredible, seriously, some of the best I've seen all year. However, each of them has a flaw so large that it changes the entire meaning of the film. Now let's start with Weapons, a great film with a terribly annoying little voice. Before we jump into any major criticism, let me just say I absolutely loved this movie. From the mystery of the missing kids, it was done beautifully. The narrative was clever, shifting from character to character, with each new perspective bringing another layer of depth to the story it was trying to tell. During the entirety of this film, I tried to guess what was going to happen next, and I was wrong every single time. This shifting in perspectives has been kind of a signature for Zach Kreger, the director, who has also made Barbarian, that had a similar storytelling style. The film is scary, the characters are compelling, and there were multiple scenes where I had my hands literally covering my eyes, which is a great indicator for a horror thriller experience. But now it's time for me to get into the reason I'm making this video, because as much as I loved the movie Weapons, I absolutely hate this little voiceover girl. The movie opens with an elementary school girl giving a full exposition dump before the movie actually even starts. This lasts roughly 4 minutes before we get into any of the actual content from the characters.
This is a true story that happened in my town. So this one Wednesday is like a normal day for the whole school. Today was different.
It's unnecessary, awkward, and feels a little bit last minute, like they didn't know how to open or even close this film as a whole. Now this little girl goes into detail about how these kids went missing at a random day, at a random time, but the best part is, she's not in this movie! That's right, the little girl giving us all this information has no part of the movie whatsoever. She is not part of the story. She simply is attending the school, the same elementary school that these kids went missing, years later. She has no connection. And to make matters even worse, everything she says in her little exposition dump, we see again 20 more times in the film. We see footage of the little kids running away. We see the teacher enter the classroom and the confusion that follows. We do not need some little bitch narrating it the entire time. Like I said, after the initial 4 minutes is up, she just disappears. She's not part of the story. Then you get comfortable and relax and you're like, man, I never have to hear this little girl's voice again. And then the last 30 seconds of the film, she decides to come back. And these last 30 seconds is really when I start to wonder, does the director know what he's doing? It is very clear that she is shoehorned in at the end to basically say, and without giving out too many spoilers, but it really wouldn't matter anyway because it's so freaking vague. She in short says, yeah, everything's pretty much better now. Well, not really, but some of the people are better now. What? That is and then credits roll. That's the whole thing. The movie would have been so much stronger. Literally, the first thing you learn is show, don't tell. And they are literally telling you instead of showing you. It feels lazy and unnecessary, and honestly, the ending of the film would have hit way harder if it was left without this narration. You see a father pick up his child, the kid is traumatized behind him, all the other kids are standing there just blank faces and won't say anything. You could have wrapped it up there, bud. You didn't have to give us an exposition dump that told us nothing. Let us come up with our own emotions. You don't need a 9-year-old spoon-feeding me what to feel at the very end. And now, of course, the second thing that drove me absolutely bonkers is, of course, the giant gun in the sky. During a section of the film, one of the main characters, a father who has his son go missing, is in a dream sequence. Okay, he pulls up to his house and he sees his child run inside. And he looks above the house and sees a giant gun in the air. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, oh no, please do not let this be some half-baked metaphor about gun violence in schools. Because other than the title of Weapons and the little kids that went missing, this movie does not explore aspects of that at all. I was worried that this film up to this point that has been great was going to take this moral stance to make it sound more deep than it actually has any credit being. And let me make it clear, I think it's very important that films talk about these very uncomfortable conversations. However, it needs to be done in a purposeful way, not in some last second thought that you put into the movie. But somehow, it's even worse than that. After the movie, like any good critic, I looked up some interviews on what the hell does that mean from the director. okay? And apparently, it doesn't mean anything at all. According to Zach Kreger himself, he just included it because he liked the image and wanted to leave it completely up to interpretation. That's it. No deeper thought, no further symbolism, just cuz. And honestly, that's infuriating. Including such a massive, visually striking symbol in your movie with no further thought is just lazy filmmaking. It's like if I were to make an animated piece of art of the tortoise and the hare, and in the background I included Kim Jong-un just cause, I don't know, it felt cool. Yeah, sure, someone could try and find meaning in it, but it wouldn't feel earned. This in combination with the pointless narrator goes to show that Zach Kreger at times just does whatever he wants and makes decisions on a whim without any further thought. And if you won't take my word for it, take his.
You know, I have so many scripts where I'm like, I got a great one, but I don't know. I just don't know.
So overall, these two things just kind of put a bad taste in my mouth about the movie Weapons. Despite me absolutely loving it, it did kind of change what the meaning of the film could mean if it's left up to pure interpretation without any outside thought. And don't get me wrong, I love movies that leave things up to interpretation, but not whenever it is so integral to the story, and also, the director doesn't know what it is. Now moving on to my next movie that just barely missed the mark but is incredibly good as well, the new Frankenstein. Released just a few days ago, it was made by this guy, which I'm not even going to pretend to try and say his name because I'm just going to make it sound bad. But this Frankenstein is probably one of the most honest and faithful adaptations to the original classic by Mary Shelley. Now there are a couple of noticeable changes that honestly I think work well and are great for general audiences, and you're only really going to notice them if you're a huge nerd of this book like I am. And most of these changes were made with love, and I personally embraced them, even if some of them are a little bit on the nose. This can be seen in how Frankenstein is a much more outwardly evil person than compared to the book, which we can see through his abuse of the monster or even the selfishness shown throughout. Whereas in the book, it's a lot more subtle and something that you read into. And again, much like the last film, I thought this was an amazing movie that had me geeking out the whole time. Genuinely, whenever the monster started talking, I started freaking out and literally shaking because I knew his perspective was going to come up next. But despite how amazing and faithful it is to the source material, it truly falls apart at the end. You see, in the book of Frankenstein, it definitely does not have a happy ending. Where in the book, we see the titular monster come and find Frankenstein and eventually kill him in battle, and then afterwards he takes his own life to put himself out of his own misery. This is not a good ending. It is bleak, but it is real, but it shows us the accumulation of all of the concepts that we see throughout the book. Yet in the movie, we see Frankenstein laying on his deathbed and basically begging the monster for forgiveness, and the monster just gives it to him. And again, I understand that this is a much more palatable ending for general audiences, but really? Dr. Frankenstein remains unchanged throughout the entirety of the film, having only hate in his heart for this being, and yet at the very end, he changes his whole sense of being just cuz. In the film, he tries to kill and frame the monster for a variety of things, and yet at the end, on his deathbed, he decides, yeah, I'm gonna give some fatherly advice and become understandable. This ending ultimately feels like a cop-out, changing the characters and their beings in a way that was very unsatisfying and very upsetting to see. When Frankenstein inevitably passes away from his wounds, we see the creature walk into the sunset, literally, not metaphorically, showing that he is having a somewhat happy ending. It's such a bizarre and tone-deaf ending that Frankenstein gets forgiveness, which he ultimately shouldn't have gotten in any sense, and the change of heart that we see on his deathbed for no reason other than realizing that the monster went through some bad things makes no sense whatsoever. And one last time, I get that it is more palatable for general audiences, but it kind of undermines exactly what made Mary Shelley's original so timeless to begin with. But despite everything I've said, I do truly love both of these films. They're creative, beautifully filmed, and I will most likely watch them multiple times. But you just know I had to rant about these small moments between a useless narrator, a pointless giant gun in the sky, and a meaningless redemption arc at the end that kind of changed these films from great movies that could have been masterpieces into a little bit less. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did these moments bother you as much as they did me? And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out. Alright, that's all from me. Bye now.